Good evening, all of you. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, The Guide, The Knowledge Hub. This is Ramesh, Faculty of Biology. Dear students, please subscribe, like, and share the YouTube channel, The Guide. Okay, dear students, yes, I am explaining the lesson respiration. So, in the previous class, we discussed some number of topics of respiration. Today I am going to explain the types of respiration. Already in the previous class, the differences, what are the differences between two types of respirations I explained in the previous class. So those two types of respirations are aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration. The differences also I explained in the previous class. Today I will continue that topic. Okay, listen carefully. Okay, dear students. So first of all, again I wanted to recall what is meant by respiration. Oxidation of food materials, especially glucose, fatty acids and proteins to carbon dioxide and water is called respiration. So in that respiration, the respiration is two types. There are two types of respirations, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. You know already about that is. The aerobic respiration takes place to the presence of oxygen. The anaerobic respiration takes place absence of oxygen. Okay, now you have an idea about these two types of respirations. At the same time, dear students, so there is a glycolysis. What is? So glycolysis is the first step in respiration. You know very well. So glycolysis is the first step in respiration, which is common for all types of respirations. So actually students, oxygen is required for respiration. Dear students, today I am going to explain this lesson without demonstration. So today I am going to explain this lesson by lecture method. Okay, better pay the concentrate and better understand. Okay, please follow my lesson. So dear students, we know the importance of oxygen. Oxygen is required for respiration and oxidation of sugars. Sugars means glucose. C6H12O6 is the chemical formula of glucose. So this glucose occurs in several stages. So actually glucose is the most commonly used. Glucose is the most commonly used sugar for deriving. It is deriving energy in plants and animals and some other microorganisms, including human beings also. Okay, listen carefully students. So in all these organisms, glucose is oxidized in two stages. So the glucose, every time the glucose is oxidizing, the glucose is chemically oxidized with oxygen. So that is oxidation. So here this glucose is oxidized in two stages. So glucose has 6 carbon atoms. Glucose C6H12O6, that is C6H12O6. So this is glucose. What is this? Glucose. So the glucose has 6 carbon molecules. Glucose has 6 carbon atoms or molecules in the first stage of oxidation. The first stage of oxidation. So what is glucose has 6 carbon atoms. Okay, have you understanding? So please follow. So glucose is converted to 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. Glucose is converted into 2 molecules. Glucose is converted to 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid. So listen carefully. Glucose has 6 carbon atoms and in the first stage of oxidation. So here glucose is converted into 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. So each molecule of pyruvic acid, so each molecule, so 2 means 1 plus 1. So each molecule of pyruvic acid has 3 carbon atoms. So this one has 3 carbon atoms. It one has 3 carbon atoms. This process does not require oxygen. In this process does not require oxygen. Here the glucose is converted into 2 pyruvic acids. So each pyruvic acid is dividing into contains 3 carbon atoms. So 3 carbon atoms. So this process no need oxygen for this process. No need oxygen requirement for this. So it occurs. What is this? It occurs even in the absence of oxygen. So CO2 means carbon dioxide here produced. Already in that previous class we discussed a little amount of energy is released in this process of anaerobic respiration. So in this, okay, this process is common for both aerobic and anaerobic. This process is common for both aerobic and anaerobic. This process. Okay, so at the same time, commonly it is called as glycolysis. So actually this process in both aerobic and anaerobic respirations common. It is common for both two respirations. So and this respiration commonly called as glycolysis. What is glycolysis? Glycolysis. So glycolysis means glyco means sugars or glucose. So next lysis. Lysis means breaking down. Break down. What is breakdown? So glycolysis means glyco means sugars or glucose. Lysis means breakdown. So in the second stage, up to here this is first stage. In the second stage of oxidation, each molecule of pyruvic acid, in the second stage of each molecule of pyruvic acid is oxidized to 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. So these 2 molecules of pyruvic acid is converting into 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. Are you understood this point? In the second stage of oxidation, each molecule of pyruvic acid is oxidized to 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. Okay na? In the second stage, each molecule actually in the glucose is converting into 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. So 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. In each molecule of pyruvic acid, in the second stage, each molecule of pyruvic acid so oxidized to 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. So here oxygen present in this pyruvic acid, C2H5OH. So in this process, hydrogen present in this pyruvic acid are transferred to oxygen, means taken up from the air. The oxygen is taken up from the air to form water. Okay, in this process of oxidation, oxygen being the terminal acceptor, it is there. Oxygen here the oxygen is terminal acceptor. So it is called as aerobic oxidation or aerobic respiration. Okay, now aerobic respiration or aerobic oxidation. So the process require energy. This process require energy. So actually once I wanted to remind that differences between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. This is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Okay. So actually here, to the presence of oxygen, the aerobic respiration takes place. The absence of oxygen, anaerobic respiration takes place. In this aerobic respiration, here oxygen requires, here O2 is required. O2 is required in this process. So O2 is, oxygen is required. So from this aerobic respiration, carbon dioxide, water produced. Carbon dioxide and water produced in this aerobic respiration. And next, large amount of energy. Large amount of energy released. Large amount of energy released in here. Okay. So here oxygen required, no need oxygen. Oxygen does not require. Oxygen does not require oxygen. Okay. So next, carbon dioxide and water here produced. So water is not produced, carbon dioxide produced, and compounds like ethanol, lactic acid. So here oxygen, water. Water not produced. Here water is not produced. But carbon dioxide is produced. Carbon dioxide is produced in this process. So here along with this, so compounds like ethanol, lactic acid, ethanol and lactic acid, ethanol and lactic acid are formed here in this process. What is ethanol and lactic acid formed in this? So here in the aerobic respiration, glucose is oxidized. C6H12O6 oxidized 6O2 and gives rise what materials are produced here? Carbon dioxide and water produced. So 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus energy is 600 and how much? 686 kilocalories energy produced here. So in this process, so glucose C6H12O6 will converted into 2C2H5OH. 2C2H5OH, ethanol or ethyl alcohol, and carbon dioxide plus 6 plus carbon dioxide. So C6H12O6 and from this glucose 2C2H5OH and carbon dioxide 56 kilocalories. How much? 56 kilocalories produced in this process. Okay, have you clear? So ethanol or lactic acid, ethyl alcohol produced in this anaerobic respiration. in this carbon dioxide and water produced by oxidizing of the glucose. Have you understood? So here oxidation of pyruvic acid to carbon dioxide depends on oxygen availability. Again I am repeating, oxidation of pyruvic acid. So any substance is chemically combining with oxygen, that is oxidation, I mean oxidizing. So the oxidation of pyruvic acid to carbon dioxide, pyruvic acid to carbon dioxide depends upon the availability of oxygen. So in the absence of oxygen, the molecules of pyruvic acid formed at the end of the glycolysis under load. Okay, have you understanding? So in the process of oxygen, the molecules of pyruvic acid formed at the end of the glycolysis. Okay, incomplete of oxidation to carbon dioxide and compounds like ethanol or ethyl alcohol. Okay, ethanol or ethyl alcohol are also formed in this anaerobic respiration. Okay, so this process of converting glucose to first pyruvic acid, subsequently to ethanol or lactic acid in absence of oxygen is called anaerobic respiration. Okay, this type of respiration occurs in several tissues and organisms. So muscles and some parasites like leech, mosquitoes, the best example of plant parasite Cuscuta. So here muscles and some parasites like mosquitoes and leeches and yeast bacteria. Okay, some yeast bacteria like some yeast and bacteria like Clostridium botulinum. So are typical examples in which anaerobic respiration occurs very commonly. Okay, in anaerobic respiration, the bacteria like Clostridium botulinum and yeast and tissues and muscles and some parasites are involved in this. Okay, anaerobic respiration. So in all these processes, the glucose is converted into pyruvic acid. Glucose is converted into pyruvic acid. Glucose is converted into pyruvic acid. In all these processes, glucose is converted into pyruvic acid. So in all these processes, glucose is converted into pyruvic acid, and the fate means destiny of pyruvic acid is different in different organisms and tissues. For example, so pyruvic acid, glucose is converted into pyruvic acid. So this pyruvic acid is different in different organisms and tissues. For example, how this pyruvic acid is different in different organisms. Okay, I will tell you. I will give you clarification. So in muscles and several tissues, pyruvic acid is reduced to lactic acid. In our muscles and our tissues, the pyruvic acid is converted into lactic acid. Reduced into the lactic acid. And second step, in absence of oxygen, yeast cells convert pyruvic acid to ethanol. Are you understanding? Are you following? You know already how the wine or alcohol is making by fermentation. By the process of fermentation, the alcohol is producing. So by using of yeast, barley, and grapes, maize. So by using all these, so the alcohol, wine is preparing. So here, in absence of oxygen, yeast cells convert pyruvic acid to ethanol. So this process is called fermentation. Okay, no? The absence of oxygen, yeast cells converting into pyruvic acid to ethanol. This process is called fermentation. So the process of fermentation is known for the past several centuries. So we well know about Louis Pasteur, the scientist Louis Pasteur onwards. We well know about this about fermentation. So several centuries onwards, and to use it for large scale production of alcohol. Okay, so for production of alcohol and other beverages, so some molasses, other materials means the production of alcohol and other materials like molasses, grape juice, grapes, and germinating barley. At the same time, wheat grains are used as raw materials to make wine or alcohol. So bacteria, one of the bacteria, we well know about this bacteria. Okay, very familiar bacteria to human beings. So bacteria such as lactobacillus convert into pyruvic acid to lactic acid. So again I am repeating, the bacteria, lactobacillus bacteria is converting pyruvic acid to lactic acid. What is pyruvic acid to lactic acid? So these bacteria are commonly used in our homes. Okay, clear? Okay. Yes, dear students. So what is the we well know about lactobacillus bacteria. It is very useful bacteria. Lactobacillus bacteria is very useful bacteria to make milk to curd. To make curd, so the milk is converted into curd with the help of lactobacillus bacteria. Okay, so this lactobacillus bacteria is from the pyruvic converting into pyruvic acid to lactic acid. So it is very important to remember this conversion of glucose to pyruvate is a part of the both aerobic and anaerobic respirations. Okay, in all the tissues. So the glucose is converting to pyruvate is the part of both aerobic and anaerobic respirations. So when oxygen once wait. Okay, so when oxygen is inadequate, that is, if the oxygen is not available, glucose oxidation stops at this point. Again I am repeating, if the oxygen is not available, the glucose oxidation stops at this point, and pyruvic acid is converted to either lactic acid or alcohol. If the oxygen is not available, automatically the glucose from the glucose pyruvic acid came now, that pyruvic acid is converted into either lactic acid or ethyl alcohol. So if oxygen is available at this stage, pyruvic acid is further oxidized to carbon dioxide and water. So here there are 2 points, very most important 2 points. So if the oxygen is available, then the pyruvic acid is converted into carbon dioxide and water. Again I am repeating. So if the oxygen is unavailable, if the oxygen not available, the pyruvic acid is converted to either lactic acid or alcohol. If the oxygen is available at this stage, so the pyruvic acid is further oxidized into carbon dioxide and water. Okay, are you understanding? So once look at the board. So here the starch is converting into glucose, means sugars. So next from this presence of glycolysis. Glycolysis. So glycolysis. So it is converting into pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid. From this, okay. O2 present. O2 is oxygen absent. Oxygen absent. So to the presence of oxygen, the pyruvic acid is converting into carbon dioxide and water, CO2 and water. So if the absence of oxygen, the absence of oxygen, the pyruvic acid is converting into ethyl alcohol, lactic acid, C2H5OH, C2H5OH plus CO2. Once look at the code. Starch is converted to glucose. The glucose, the presence of glycolysis, means the glucose is breaking down into pyruvic acid. The pyruvic acid, to the presence of oxygen, converting into carbon dioxide and water. If the oxygen available, the pyruvic acid is further divided into, further oxidizing into carbon dioxide and water. So if the pyruvic acid is in the pyruvic acid, if the absence of oxygen, if the oxygen is not available, the pyruvic acid is converting into ethanol or ethyl alcohol, lactic acid and carbon dioxide. So this is about aerobic and anaerobic respirations. Okay, thank you students.